Greetings and welcome to this episode of Everyday Enchantment. I am your host, Stacey Andon, and today we're going to talk about all those intuitive messages that you get that seem a little bit crazy, impossible. You don't have proof that it's going to work out, but you feel so called to it. And I want to talk to that. I want to talk about in this episode how we trust ourselves, our intuitive guidance system, even when we have no proof it's going to work out. So let's jump in, and I want to start with my first husband, my first marriage 23 years ago. We were looking to buy a house. And in this purchase of this house, we had found a house that we liked. And then, kind of at the last minute, there was this townhouse that absolutely like had every option, was beautiful, beautiful location, you name it. It was less expensive. I could have had just exactly what I wanted in my kitchen, you name it. I didn't have to make really any compromises like I was making when we were looking at the single family house, because again, there was a price differential. There was something telling me in that moment, Stacey, this is not the right house for you. I mean, I was surprised, really, really surprised, because again, it was on a walking trail. It was a beautiful kitchen. It had this great little breakfast nook. I can still remember it to this day, falling in love with this house. And then feeling something that was like, nope, this isn't right. Nope, this isn't right. And at the time, I told myself, oh, you much prefer a single family. You have your own yard and space a little bit differently than in a townhouse community. And that seemed to, like, again, calm whatever this other thing was. Now, I want you to fast forward, let's say like maybe 15 years. I don't know. Don't let me hold me to the math, but 11, 12 years ago. So we'll split the 23 in about half. Okay. 12 years ago, my now love of my life, my now husband, we weren't married at the time, but we were looking for our own place. And we had scoured the area for 6 months. I mean, we looked at house, townhouse, you name it, we looked at it. Everything in the market, we were like, nope, 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 nope. Every time I walked into a place, I was like, this isn't it. This isn't it. Come upon this house that came on the market on like a Thursday night or something like that. We see the listing. I was like, I want to get in there immediately. I knew immediately that was my house, our house. And I, of course, walked through, but I had already known, like, again, these deep nudges that after 6 months of looking and just thinking, like, am I being too picky? Is this it right? Again, then all of a sudden, just like that. And I want to remind you that that can absolutely how our intuition and yeses work. Sometimes it's no, 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 no. We get discouraged. Find some despair. We think there's something wrong with us. And then yet in another new moment, right? The moment before, I was feeling some frustration. And then in this moment, it's like, here's your house. And this is the funny thing. So this house is in the same neighborhood as the house that I would have bought, right? This other one that we were looking at, right by the trails, all the things. So interesting. It was almost like the universe, like, you're going to live here one day, but it ain't right now. You love this space, but this is not your space right now. It's almost like a little preview. And then, because I would never have bought I would not, because I had some entanglements still with my first husband those years ago. I would not have bought something where our house was in the neighborhood. I would have wanted a cleaner energy zone for me. I know I would have. And so it's just so interesting because I never really understood, except for this, like, again, human explanation of like, oh, I wanted, this is what I thought I wanted. But it was like, no, 20 some years later, you get clarity about things. Now, sometimes you never get clarity, but it's just a very interesting thing when that happens. And years ago, I was in master coach training and we were out in California. And again, interestingly enough, this horse, we were doing equus coaching, which I don't know if you know anything about equus coaching, but horses are beautiful conduits of energy. They help mirror back what's going on in our lives. So, a lot of times, if you are coaching with a life coach, you could do the same amount of work, in my opinion. Like maybe it might take 3 to 6 sessions. A horse, an hour, half an hour in the ring with a horse, you might be able to clear through things that would otherwise, again, take a little bit longer because the energy of the horse just brings it all right forward. And again, when we are getting coached or we're doing something, we're easing in a little bit. The horses are like, nope, we're here in this moment with whatever's here. And so I found myself in the morning out by the stables and the pasture, and there was a horse out in the field, and the horse was like, you know what, you and me, we're going to coach together. And I really thought, this is crazy. Again, notice how we label that when we can't explain something, when we feel uncomfortable with our own intuitive, at least for me, guidance system, I go to the label that the world uses: crazy, whatever, fill in the blank. And so I do, I direct that to myself. And yet all morning that horse is like, I can't wait to see you. I can't wait to see you. Now, people are going in front of me, right? There's no set, what have you. We eat lunch. And then afterwards, I don't know if I was the first person after lunch or maybe the second person after lunch, but they bring the horse in, right? The one that's been talking to me all day. And I freaked out. Oh my God, I totally freaked out. Literally in this huge ring with this huge horse, and all of a sudden the horse starts bucking, going crazy, just absolutely just in the space of my own inner, right? My own inner belief system at the moment, which is like, how did that happen? How is all of this true? How is this connection real with this horse? And how is my magic and all my intuitive intelligence, right? That is deeply powerful. I was questioning it. I wasn't believing it. I was really uncomfortable when it came to fruition, which is so interesting, right? Because we want to believe, we want it to be true and real. And yet sometimes when it is, in this example, right, where it was like, I couldn't handle it. Part of me just was like, what? No, I'm used to being wrong, or at least the world is telling me you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. And so it's like this perfect storm of that belief, the world's belief that I've been carrying, my own truth nature, which is absolutely this connection with Mother Nature and animals and all the things. And so the horse was, again, like bucking and running out of control. I literally stood in the ring and sobbed and had no idea what I was going to do. And I had to let the emotion of that moment, all of those feelings, all of the things that I was fearful of, worried. It's like, it's an interesting thing because the fear was really like what you desired happened, and then the capacity to hold that truth. So it wasn't like the worst thing happened to me, right? And then I'm in that emotion or that experience. It's like, no. And so I think sometimes when we're creating things, we block ourselves off, we shut ourselves off, we may be what people might call self-sabotage because we don't know how to be in that kind of energy. So I stood there sobbing in front of all my coach classmates, whatever you want to call it, a bunch of other people. I allowed myself to feel the shame the embarrassment, right, of whatever this was, because most people were going into the ring and having, like, they're asking us to make the horse do this. Well, not make the horse, ask the horse, right, to trot or to turn around, and here I am. My horse is like, you're not going to do anything right now because you don't even trust yourself. And so the first piece of trusting yourself and trusting when things, again, do come to fruition in amazing ways is letting all of that human angst, so to speak, be seen and heard and come up. Because if you don't do that, you're like you're trying to bypass. Oh, I'm this soulful being and I can create magic. Okay, well, what about the human that's like, which is what the horse was reflecting back to me. So take those spaces to come back into your own body, feel your feet on the ground, breathe, right? Take a nice deep breath in, take a nice deep breath out. Let your nervous system settle. I am safe. It's safe to receive. It's safe to be this, right? This embodiment of very, very magical energy. And it takes some, again, practice. This is not a state of perfection we're going to find ourselves in. This is a practice. And so this believing before we see, trusting ourselves when all of the world is saying, that cannot be possible, there's no way. I absolutely want you to hold those two things, right? The reality of the 3D world, and then the true nature of all the realms at large, where everything and all things are possible. How do you marry? And maybe, and I don't mean marry like one has to acquiesce to the other, but it's like, how do you blend these things so that you can live in this planet on this, on this plane and, be the person that you're here to be. And I think for a lot of us, we've been taught, we've been trained to distrust ourselves, not to use the systems that we are already like wired into our DNA. So the next time that you get a nudge that is like, I don't know, I have no idea, you might never know, or you might know next week. And again, in every moment is real time, different new information. So we might pivot 3 times. It doesn't mean that we're confused and we lack clarity and confidence. It means that we are so dialed in and we trust whatever this, like, again, non-linear path of our lives, you can't mess it up. So you just play this beautiful game of whoever you are. And pivoting is part of the game, coming back to your truth, freaking out when you're creating things, like all part of it. So that trust, again, is this fluid energy, this like, imagine you're in a love affair with trust, right? And you are dating and you are, again, every moment, every date with an experience becomes a date with trust. And that is a really cool experience. If we're willing, again, we have to be willing to be uncomfortable, like willing to turn things down that, like, on paper make absolute sense, and still believe and know that nothing that is for us is going to pass us by. And we're not choosing like the mediocre path, that something better is absolutely. I looking back at that, like, example with my first husband and then my second husband, it's like, oh my God, like, I'm just like, absolutely worked out perfectly. But did I know any of that at the time? No. So when we find ourselves in uncertainty, it doesn't mean that we're lost. It doesn't mean that we don't have clarity. It means that we are willing, again, that's part of this dating of trust. Take yourself on some trust dates and listen to whatever it is. And I always say, and I've said this before, start in places where there's like the low hanging fruit, where there's not a lot that you feel is on the line. Practice there first. But I also want you to know that you can trust and practice with the bigger things too. And the more we do that, I mean, the world is just ripe for that. The more we do that, the more we're going to help shape this planet's evolution in the best possible way. So, anyway, I share with you some of my stories because, again, I am like a living example. That's part of my superpower. It's like, let me have the experience so I can share it with all of you. You don't have to go through all the horse bucking and the sobbing and all of that. You can extract the wisdom from me as a guide for you. I am in place here for you, and I serve at the pleasure of your intuitive guidance systems as well. So, anyway, that is what I have for this episode. Come on over to Everyday Enchantment, the private Facebook group, and talk about this and any other topic. And if you are searching for clarity or you're searching for that confidence and wanting to build that trust muscle, come and either have a coaching session with me, have several coaching sessions with me, kind of a blend of all the intuitive gifts that I have that are available to you, and really give yourself the gift of building that trust and taking yourself out on those dates. All right, loves, that is it for now. We are going to see each other soon. And until then, have a beautiful, beautiful day. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for tuning in. Get all the delicious details and links we've mentioned in this episode in the show notes below. If you'd like to chat about this episode or learn more about how to work with me, come visit me in my private Facebook group, Everyday Enchantment, or check out my website, staceyandon.com, where you can find out more about my Leap of Faith coaching, my Map Makers group program, and the School of Intuitive Magic. Plus a special shout out for all the production and editing of this show by Richard Wilmore. That's it for now, love. Here's to living a life enchanted. See you soon.